what people call organizations, they're really disorganizations, most of them, and they don't know how their processes work, who's responsible for what, who has access to what system. Organization is ultimately what gets you leverage into finding things, making decisions, accessibility. And it actually led me to have an anxiety attack. I actually checked myself into the hospital.
It's about efficiency. A lot of us have this drive. We can see the patterns and the chaos where others can't. So if there's anything inefficient, it just sort of drives you crazy.
What does that impact? Who does it impact? What systems does it impact? And the diagrams within Puzzle gives you like a Rubik's Cube level of visibility.
Hello, everybody. I am super stoked for our next podcast here. I'm with Brian from Puzzle App, and I'm so excited to talk to him because, Brian, when I saw your software for the first time, what was it, about a month ago, my head was spinning with possibilities. And I feel like most people don't realize how important what you do is for their ability to transform and become an AI-first organization. I think most people think of their company as a bunch of people doing stuff, and what Puzzle does is it sort of opens up that black box and can really map out all the systems. And I think this is just an absolute critical requirement for anybody that believes in the future of AI and wants to become an AI first organization. I feel like Puzzle is a critical step. So I can't wait to get through that demo and show our viewers today what you've been up to. But first, let's go a little bit about your origin story, because I think that's pretty fascinating how small your team is, how limited dev resources you have, and you've built such an amazing application. So tell us a little bit like who you are, where you're from, how you got started, and how the heck did you build such an amazing application with like a half-time developer? What's going on here?
Yeah, thanks, Mike. The story started actually at a very particular point in my life. It was 2017, and I was running the operations for a 15-person organization. And this 15-person organization was all chaos, no order. There was not a single thing written down in the organization. And so anytime we needed to make a change to a process or a system, I would call an org-wide meeting. And all 15 people would get into this meeting, and we would talk about how we use a specific system or how a specific process worked. And that 1 hour meeting would turn into multiple hours. And we would make no decisions because there was no one person who had the entire operational big picture totally figured out. And it actually led me to have an anxiety attack. I actually checked myself into the hospital because I was working so hard, so many nights, and I was trying to wrangle this startup company to have some stability in it. And at that point in time, I called this problem space Puzzle. And the problem space was the fact that no one had the operational big picture, so that someone would be able to understand how a process works. Someone could onboard a new team member and understand exactly what they would be responsible for across one or many processes. And, over 3 years, I worked at several different companies just with this in the back of my head, thinking about there's got to be a tool that helps you understand how people, process, and tools work together and how they're all interconnected. So that was really the precipice for me kind of feeling this pain point and ultimately starting Puzzle in 2020.
Wow. First, when you said anxiety attack, I thought you were being exaggerating a bit, but no, legit. And I think that
legit.
I mean, in our, I've been working in agency life for 25 years, and anxiety attacks are pretty common with new people when they stumble into agency world and things are moving so fast. And yeah, I guess like what I always do when I'm coaching somebody that's having anxiety from work, it's usually that they're not taking time to do a daily strategic plan to start out their day with intention. The day kind of reactively happens to them, and they kind of get stuck in the middle of things, and they're just, working their way through instead of being proactive, they're being reactive. And that anxiety can build. And I guess it's kind of the same thing, like to map out your day and your tasks and your week and have a plan and communicate your roadblocks, align with your team, and then take action. You could say the same thing for about how you operate your entire company. Like if you don't have clarity as to how processes are moving or how data is flowing through an organization, that can be quite overwhelming. So I guess it's more about bringing clarity and being sort of proactive and in control of your environment where you start to have the anxiety go away. Is that sort of the thinking?
So here are my thoughts when you were just talking about that, because when I think about what was happening at that organization, the issue is that the information that I needed to make a decision about how we improve a process or how we implement a system, it lived fragmented across multiple people's minds. And so the amount of dependency that it required for me to go collect all of those, I'll call them clues or insights, to be able to collect those insights and then make a decision, required me to go book meetings with each of those 15 people. And so the amount of work that it required for me to just collect the information or clues to then go make a decision about how we wanted to implement a system, or if we could make a small change to the lead status or the way that we sync this system to that system, it required like 300% of the work that it would have required me to just go make the change, is making sure that that change wouldn't do adverse things to the rest of my system. And so I think that's what was causing me my anxiety, is like, we had not just one change that we wanted to make to the system, we had 20 changes we wanted to make to the system. Each change to the system had 15 people who had clues or insights that I needed to collect. So, I mean, do the math there, but it's like, 300 meetings that I would have to go collect all of these clues or insights to evaluate how to make these decisions. And so really what Puzzle does for processes and systems is it democratizes access to how all of those incremental pieces of information that you would need to make a decision, whether it impacts your data model and how your data model is used across systems and processes, where inputs are made across the process, whether it's required fields in a form or inputs within your CRM or things that the CSM, customer success manager, needs from a sales rep when that handoff happens. All of these places where data is inputted, it needs to be documented. So someone could say, oh, we want to change this part of the process. What does that impact? Who does it impact? What systems does it impact? And the diagrams within Puzzle gives you like a Rubik's Cube level of visibility into how all of your people, process, and tools work together, where you can pivot on any one of those components and see how that component is hooked into the rest of your architecture.
Got it. I tapped into your anxiety there, and I think it's going to lead into my next point about your vision and how you got here. But I'm going to take a wild stab, Brian. I'm just getting to know you here. I had a brief moment of anxiety as I was coming back from, I had an eyeglass appointment. It's coming in my door. I had two jackets on. It's freezing here in Vancouver. I had a winter jacket, another jacket, and some pants. And I'm like, where the frick are my keys? And that split second when I'm trying to get in the door, running to a meeting, and I had to check like 5 pockets, and where are they? Just that little bit of a delay. I just felt the anxiety building. I'm like, take a breath, find your keys. I only wasted 6 seconds of my day. But I think a lot of people, especially entrepreneurs that are drawn to systems and processes and technology and AI, and it's about efficiency. A lot of us have this drive. We can see the patterns and the chaos where others can't. So if there's anything inefficient, it just sort of drives you crazy. Is there that element of potential, a little bit ADHD, hyper-focus that brought you to this world of entrepreneurship? Or like, what was the passion that what was the spark that pulled you out of that environment and said, look, I need to do this on my own?
It's a great question. I have always been this way. I don't know if it's like a diagnosed ADHD, but I love to be organized. I'm an organized person. Every part of my life is organized. And actually, when I was in high school, I wrote on my whiteboard, because I always had a whiteboard in my childhood room. Ironically enough, my product is a whiteboard product. And I loved the freedom that it allowed me to create and organize my life, whether it was my social life or my homework or my sports life or whatever that is. And when I was thinking about what I wanted to do with my life, I was at my whiteboard and I wrote the one word that I felt like I was better than anyone else on earth. And it was organization. I literally wrote the word down, organization, because organization is ultimately what gets you leverage into finding things, making decisions, accessibility, like you're talking about with your keys, right? Like I don't want to have to like think about for 10 minutes where I put my keys left. Like I always want to know where I'm going to put my keys. And so this is not really kind of a new thing for me. I've always been an organized person. And in a way, this product is like an externalization of my identity. I kind of feel that strongly about it. Like it really helps what people call organizations. They're really disorganizations, most of them, and they don't know how their processes work, who's responsible for what, who has access to what system. And so what Puzzle allows you to do is take all of that complexity, visualize it in a whiteboard, and see how it all connects. But I've always been kind of an anxious person, and maybe like my love for organization is actually a manifestation of just that anxiety.
Well, I wouldn't be surprised if I discovered I had ADHD at the tender age of 37. There's a big genetic component, and it was there from the very beginning. Same for me. High functioning ADHD is about 70% of entrepreneurs have it. And once you get into tech and to systems, I would not take a bet against that for you. And I think a lot of it is like the reason why some of us who are slightly neuroatypical are so good with systems and processes is because we need them. If we don't have them, our life kind of goes into disarray. So we anchor onto those things, whereas other people can just remember stuff and it just kind of happens. And so at least that's been my journey into systems. It's like I have the most organized systems and daily strategic planning, and I love documenting things. But back to your point there about documentation, some people see it as like this inefficient, like, ugh, I got to like write out all this paperwork. But if you look at most of the core business operating systems that small businesses use, like the entrepreneurial operating system from the book Traction EOS, they've got their core processes, Rockefeller habits, scaling up. It's all about processes and documentation, getting things out of people's heads. And that's what I've done for years is documenting. And then with AI, we moved to like agentic documentation or automatically creating our SOPs, like just speaking into our microphone, and then the AI can build beautiful standardized SOPs and organize them. That's great. But what you do is next level. So I can't wait for Brian to do the demo here shortly. But in January, can I talk about what's coming out in January with Puzzle? Because you showed me that demo, and are you going to show the teaser for what's coming out next? Is that possible today, or we have
in
to wait?
In the demo, I don't have a specific prompt that I could put in there.
Okay.
If you gave me an SOP, maybe I could paste it into the
I can get you
agent.
I'm full of SOPs. I can get you one pretty quick. But
Cool.
what I love, for me, this is like next level documentation. And, one business mentor told me years ago that business is just a series of documented systems and processes. And like he said to me, like, what is the Four Seasons Hotel? I'm like, it's not about property, not about real estate, and it's a book. It's a process manual that they sell over and over. And when you start to think of your business, like, you can't sell it unless you've got your processes well documented and you can, remove yourself from that system. But anyways, I think what you take it next level is you can take a standard, ugly text-based SOP, which is now a lot easier to generate thanks to AI, and you can make it visual and you can do so much more. But before we get into the demo side, tell me a bit about how the heck you built this whole project with so few dev resources? Was that predominantly leveraging AI yourself?
So Puzzle as a company started out as a consulting company. So I actually met in 2020 when I started the company and bought the domain. I interviewed with 75 investors, and I pitched them on this idea of visual documentation that had structured components, people, process, and tools all connected. And their eyes glazed over. Most of them said, "Are you like a Zapier? Is that what your product is?" And I said, "No, we're not like a Zapier. We sit on top of systems like Zapier because the future of work is hyper automated with these no-code systems." And at the time, this was 2020, so ChatGPT didn't hit the market, but people were starting to adopt more and more use cases for no-code automation, which is Zapier, Make, Tray.io, Workato, those types of platforms. And, those investors, their eyes glazed over. They didn't see the opportunity to have kind of this umbrella tool that represented how all of these systems interconnected. And so I decided to do consulting and put myself on the front lines of these organizations who were trying to automate their processes. And so that frontline seat gave me all of the insights that I needed to understand the pain points and, even alternative tools like Lucidchart, Miro, and Whimsical, and what those things lacked and what Puzzle needed in order to give people a more context-rich representation of their organization. So I was using Lucidchart for many years trying to build these maps. And man, I spent hours on these maps, dragging icons into the little step and representing what a role is and how the roles were connected to the workflows. And all of these were prototypes. I didn't know it at the time, but these were prototypes for what Puzzle would become. And I was paying $33 per month for, Lucidchart to create these prototypes. And as my consulting book of business grew, I was able to hire like a part-time contractor to give me like a design of what it could look like. And I went through like 4 different designers, part-time, little, 5K contracts, 10K contracts. And I was just reinvesting all of the funds that I was building from my consulting side of the business. And eventually I got to a point where I'm like, yes, this is the design. This is the vision that we're going to move forward with. I started praying and crossing my fingers for an engineer to enter my life. And funny enough, it happened in January of 2022. The engineer who has written every line of code since that day, I met in a co-working space. And I had my designs up and he said, I showed him my designs. He's like, I could build that for you. I'm like, I would love that. So in a month, he built up an MVP for Puzzle. And he continues to be the only and sole part-time developer on our team today.
And he must be using a lot of AI to code. Like, is it all Cursor and Codex, or are you going to give away the dev stack secrets here? Because anybody who demos your software will see this is pretty big application with tons of features. And when you see it out in January, all the AI features. Normally, I've been doing software development for 25 years. 2 years ago, I would have thought you had a 4 to 10 person minimum dev team working on that. And you're like, no, I got one guy. I'm like, full time? No, half time. I'm like, God, I love AI. So can you give away a little bit of the secret sauce on the dev environment?
Well, so I don't know all of what he's using to produce the code. However, for many years, 2022 and 2023 at least, he was without AI. Now, we've been in development since January of 2022, so we're going on almost 4 years or three or 4 years of developing this platform. But I have to give credit to him specifically. Like, as much as the tools do support us today with producing outsized results and output in terms of feature development, my developer is like a unicorn of a developer. He really meets me where my vision is. And I always tell him that he's God sent because I couldn't write any code. I'm non-technical founder who wants this platform built out. And so he's been a great thought partner, although part-time, a great thought partner at incrementally kind of putting together the vision that I have for the product. But he does use AI at this point. I know for a fact because our output every sprint has gone up quite a bit in like the last year and a half. And he's much more relaxed too. We get on calls and it's like, he's like, yep, we can do that. Yep, we can do that. And like before it was like, okay, but how do you want it? And like, what do you want it to look like? And now it's just like, this is what I want, hand wavy. And he's like, yeah, we can do it. No problem. And I'll see it and it's designed better than I could ever design it. Because right now I'm doing all of the product design personally in Figma. And then I hand those designs over to him and he makes it a reality. But it's much more hand wavy now, and it's our output has increased. We're doing less work. We're scoping things out less with less requirements, but we're outputting more features and more complex features because our product's bigger. So AI is a beautiful thing. I know that he's utilizing it, but I don't know the exact tech stack that he's using.
That's awesome. And you can really track your productivity there and watch. We've been tracking some of our own internal developers, and they're sort of in like the 10 to 15x productivity jump in the last 2 years in terms of lines of code and efficiency.
Incredible.
So it's fascinating. And when you have a small dev team, you don't have to talk to 4 people and have all these alignment meetings. It's just you and him align and then go. And for the record, I wouldn't say you're a non-technical founder. You maybe don't come from a software development background, but
Fair.
the fact that you're mapping out systems and processes and doing your own Figma, like, you're technical in my books. So let's jump in. Let's see the demo. This is where I met you a month ago when I was like, holy bleep, I need this for all of my clients, everyone on my team. Brian, let's see what you got.
So what you're looking at right here is Puzzle's puzzle workspace. And if I were to back out here, you can see that Puzzle's processes are hyper complex, right? You have dozens and dozens of systems within each one of these processes that are interconnected in various ways. For instance, this process right here has about 65 steps within it, and this represents the product-led sales process. So essentially what happens when a customer visits the Puzzle homepage, the form that they fill out, the Zapier that automatically adds them over to Intercom, a Clay table is connected to this type form that enriches it with data and auto enrolls it into a lemless sequence. And what you see in terms of color here, let me go ahead and highlight for you all of the automated steps real quick. So in blue, across all of these processes, you can see all of the automated steps, meaning no human takes this step. And in pink, you can see all of the manual steps across this process. So this feature right here is what's called conditional coloring. And what it does is it gives you X-ray vision into all of the data that's inputted across your processes within Puzzle. Now, the reason why we can have this level of sight into our processes is because each one of these steps has structured data that you input on the step card. So you can name the step card, you can tag the tool that's used. For instance, in this case, Webflow is used on the website. You can determine whether this step is executed by a person, an automation, or an AI agent, and you can associate what role is involved here, as well as mark the RACI configuration here. So whether the role is responsible, the approver, consulted, or informed at this part of the process. In addition to that, you have a place where you can input notes. So within Puzzle, we're combining both the visual and the technical documentation as well, including the embedding of videos like Loom videos that, maybe you film a video where you're walking through how this part of the process works. So ultimately, this
Puzzle isn't just about process. I mean, this could also be used for onboarding new employees to walk them through is that right?
Certainly. Yeah, the best practice I give users is to document to the level where someone else could come into this system, be able to read the step notes or watch the video and fully understand how this part of the process works. So, for instance, you mentioned onboarding. So if I come to the connected team designer, which is where you can architect and visualize how all of your roles are connected across your team design, I can click on this role, sales rep, for instance, and it opens up a sidebar that gives me visibility into all of the steps organized by process that this particular role is associated with. So that if I wanted to figure out how generating project proposals happens via PandaDocs, well, I can click on that part of the process and be brought straight to that specific step. That was kind of anticlimactic because that one was archived. But let's go to cancellation flow when a user is canceled. It'll bring me straight to that part of the process where you can see the sales rep is what should be informed when a user cancels, so that we can follow up with them and figure out why they canceled.
Got it. And so for me, what got me, like a few things got me super excited. One is you call them persons, I call them humans. I think the word human is getting a resurgence now that we have to explain what's agentic or what's an agent, what's a human. But When we analyze a company's processes before we get into automation, first of all, we weren't visualizing like this. We were, doing classic whimsical and now a bit of nano banana workflow diagrams. But this takes it next level. Like you can figure out the cost of a process. You can figure out the ROI. You can split test that with a proposed new process and say, hey, this is your existing process that involves all the humans. This is what it looks like when we bring in the agent. This is your ROI for that transition. Can you walk me through that? Because that's where a lot of my clients, they need to see the clear ROI, the split test, human versus agent, before they sign off and we can start automating.
Totally. So I jumped into another workspace. Another quick little tip for Puzzle is the beautiful thing about Puzzle is it's built for agencies. And Mike, while we were kind of discussing earlier, you see the use case for Puzzle with agencies. It's really, really easy to build and manage multiple workspaces. So I backed out of the Puzzle workspace and I went into another workspace called Claybooks. And this workspace holds a bunch of before and after process flows that show you the process cost or investment that would be required into a specific tech stack and the offset of the labor cost that technology would automate. So let me show you what that actually looks like. So we have these two workflows right here, right? On the left, we have the manual newsletter subscriber. So this would be the process if a sales rep had to do all of these steps manually, meaning someone subscribes to Beehive, a sales rep would go do research on that contact. They would go and post a notification in Slack saying, hey, this person just subscribed. They would have to go and input the appropriate title into the CRM, categorize the contact by department, yada, yada, yada. Well, just to the right of that, we have what's called our V2 automatic newsletter subscriber nurturing playbook. So this is the automated version of that process. And if I come to this section and click on the process costing sidebar, what you can see here is we have a roll-up of all of the labor costs on a run basis, a monthly basis, and an annual basis with a breakdown for each step involved in the process and the tools and the cost of the tools that would be used in this process versus maybe V2, which would automate a bunch of these things, everything, in fact, and bump up our tool cost quite a bit. Let me give you another example here. So let's go to this one right here.
So on that one, we can see your labor cost was high, your tool cost was lower there. The labor cost is zero, but the tool cost went up. And that's
exactly.
We have to test out tons of different scenarios, and we're really hunting for ROI and speed. And so we can go back to the client with a list. Here's 10 opportunities to automate. This one has like a 10x ROI. This is a 9. This is a 22. This is a 1.4. And so that's part of the decision making is to do this quickly. And I love too how like we normally put this into presentations that are static. And if you can come along here and do scenarios like, oh, you're growing at X% per year, and let's figure out what the savings would be in year 3. You can just quickly toggle those numbers and get dynamic ROI adjustments quickly. So I think that's amazing.
That's right. And that's just one process, right? Like you look at another process where this one takes $32,000 of labor costs. And the way that it knows that it's $32,000 is because on each one of these steps, there's what's called a step cost calculator, where you input the amount of minutes that this particular step takes for each rep and the frequency per month that you'd be doing this process. And that's what calculates the hours spent per run, monthly and annually, and the cost per run, monthly step cost and annual step cost. And all of this is calculated by the estimated hourly rate of the associated role. So if you assume that you pay a sales rep $40 per hour, well, that's what is taken into consideration when we say that this takes 10 minutes and you're doing it 100 times per month. And that's how you get this monthly and annual step cost. And then on the aggregate, it takes all of those steps and rolls them up.
So on our first call was about a month ago, I met with Brian, and my ask was like, because we do that with like Whimsical and some other tools where we'll upload the SOP and it will draw the workflow diagrams for you dynamically. But it doesn't have half the functionality here from ROI, split testing, the interconnected systems. We didn't even show the portal that connects those different systems together behind the scenes, like a little time warp feature.
Yep.
And from an agency's perspective too, that I can use this as a repository. So I can have all of my clients as circles at the top, and then I can drill down by department. But yeah, what I was most excited about is when I can take all of my SOPs for all of my clients, feed them in here, and hopefully even do that dynamically. So like we're automating our entire sales process. So I can get off a discovery call. I have an agent that's feeding me questions. We pass it to the next agent that's working on the proposal, feeds it over to Figma AI and designs it. I'm hoping I can feed that over to Puzzle via API, and then you could send back the workflow diagrams and the links, so that my goal within 3 months is that I can be on a call with a client, and by the end of the call, we've got a beautiful interactive presentation that we can share with them.
Totally.
Is that possible with Puzzle? Are you envisioning that sort of interactive API and agentic world for your own sort of onboarding of new clients?
Totally is. It totally is. And I'm trying to generate an example that we could submit into what we call Nova. Nova is our AI agent, and she would be able to do many different things. For instance, you'd be able to give it a transcript of a call where, like you said, a customer of yours walks through their specific current state process. You'd be able to submit it to Nova, and Nova would build out these flowcharts automatically, assign the tool, associate the role, add new roles if that role doesn't exist, add new tools if that tool doesn't exist, and go associate specific data fields that are used in that particular step. I mean, a lot of this we didn't really get to go into, but you can also associate the fields that are involved in specific systems and understand how your data model connects to that process as well. And Nova would be able to do all of this with just a natural language or text-based prompt.
Okay, Brian, that was awesome. Thank you so much for your time and for sharing. I'm super excited to get our agency deeply embedded with this, and I can't wait for your AI features that come out in January. Brian, you had a code or a special offer we're gonna put below. Can you quickly tell what's the deal?
If you're interested in using Puzzle for yourself, you can use the coupon code MYZONE, MYZONE, and you'll be able to get 1 month free of Puzzle at any of the subscriptions and plans that we have available on our pricing page.
Awesome. And for our Canadian friends, that letter Z is Z, in case you're wondering.
Nice.
Brian, thank you so much. I think that anybody who is planning on becoming AI first needs to document their processes, and then they need to visualize those processes. And they're going to need to differentiate between human and agents. They need to know the ROI of those transitions. And I have not yet seen a tool that can do all of those things. You can do ROI calculations in spreadsheets, you can do workflow diagrams and whimsicals, but you can't put it all together and you can't A/B test it. So I feel like you're a one of a kind. Is there anyone else doing what you're doing yet, or is this a first?
This is a first. There's really nothing on the market that's visualizing things the way that we're doing and putting numbers to it, quantifying the impact that a specific investment into a tech stack has. Of course, like you mentioned, you can do it in a fragmented sense across multiple tools, but there's no one platform that's putting all of this information together. We're really a one-of-one platform, and that's not me. That was a quote from a user who is our number one user. She loves our platform, but we really feel like we're in a space of our own, where it's organizational architecture and choosing to be the umbrella as opposed to niching down. And it's its own niche in a way. You know, it's its own niche. It just happens to be the niche of big picture.
Yeah. Well, you're going to have to run fast, as you know. I mean, there's a lot of people coming at you in this space of AI. It's getting easier to develop, and code is democratizing and demonetizing. And so it'll be an interesting journey, but I'm rooting you on. And I think if you're some of those initial investors that you were courting back in the day saw your numbers from the last 30 days, they'd be a little bit sad that they didn't sign up when you had the big vision, but props to you and where you're at. Best of luck for the future, and thank you so much for sharing. I really believe this is something that everybody who's serious about AI needs to do in some shape or another. So thank you for sharing, Brian.
Well, thank you, Mike. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. Okay, take care.